Hey everyone, my name is Andrew Davis, and you're watching Conversations in Pop Culture. And yes, I am scandalous like an Ashley. And I do want to remind everybody that this episode is brought to you by my friends over at Pocket Jack Comics. And they have a comic right now in comic shops, Guinevere and the Divinity Factory, which was sort of, I think, in April previews and is in comic shops around May, possibly June. And so you should go to your local comic shop and see if they have it. And if they don't have it, you should ask them to order it for you. And if they don't want to order it for you, you should beg them to order it for you because it's a great book and it's got some awesome covers there, as well as you could go check out Pocket Jack Comics on Whatnot. And in the description, the link is down below. And if you sign up and it's your first time, you get a $15 credit, as well as you could use coupon code Andrew for an additional 15% off of some sexy comic artwork. So that's everything that's out there. And there's some other stuff going on, but obviously I'm not going to bore you with that because I have with me comic artist Tristarr. So welcome back to the show because I think it's your third time.
Yeah, I lost count. I was actually telling my wife earlier. I was like, "Yeah, this is like third or fourth time I've done this," because I think the first year we did it was, I guess, in 2022. So this would be the third time. Yeah, so we did 22, 23, and this is 24. But yeah, no, it's good to be back. I hope to make this a tradition.
Oh, you're always welcome on my show. You're always welcome on my show. But enough about that though, because obviously you got a lot going on. But I do want to catch everybody up on who you are, what you've done, because obviously you've been around comics a while. You've done some other stuff outside of comics. And, you know, I know you're a huge basketball fan. Huge.
Yeah, as we just discussed, yeah.
I mean, you do have a relationship to basketball, though. You do have a very cool relationship with basketball.
Just with the name, yeah. But in all fairness, I had the name first. So, like, that guy, like, he's just trying to be me, you know?
You could have just said we're twins, and we all could have gone with it.
Yeah, if we were twins, like, we had the same name, like, the parents would be pretty sick to name twins the same thing.
He got the ability to shoot a three. I got the ability to draw. It's all right.
I played basketball in grade school, and I was terrible at it. Like, I was so bad. I think I played for 4 years. I made one basket during a game. Like, I was awful. I did all right in practice. I think it's just like I choke when it comes down to like the nitty gritty. Like I don't perform well when everyone's watching me. Like when it really comes to it, like I'm not going to perform well.
It's all right. I hated gym class. I was not good at it.
I like gym class. Like I don't mind gym class. It was just I did it because all my friends were playing basketball, but like I was just terrible at it. It's the team sports.
I'm good at team sports as a coach.
Oh, right. Yeah, it's like you could sit back and dictate how others do it. Like I understand how someone can catch a ball or shoot it, but I just can't coordinate myself to do that.
It's all right. It's all right. I understand. And then all jokes aside, though, I do want to catch everybody up on who you is. Obviously, you've done a lot of stuff in comics. You've done a lot of stuff in art. You've done stuff in graphics. You've done some really cool stuff with particular people who are fantastic in basketball because you had something that I think was done with Kobe Bryant.
Yeah.
And in respect to Kobe, who's one of the greats. And so obviously you've been around for a very long time. And so the quick version of that, because there's people who know who you are and there's people who don't.
Well, let's see. I started comics professionally in 2021. That was when my first published cover came out. It was my Red Sonja. It was the Comics Elite exclusive. It was volume 5, number 28. And then before that, I mean, I've been freelance off and on since I think it was 2012 was my first year doing freelance. When I was in college. I did freelance for 2 years while I was in college, and I graduated in 2013. But by the time I graduated, I already had I was dealing with some metal bands at the time, mostly metalcore bands, because that's what was like really popular at the time. So I did stuff for some clothing companies and like stuff for As I Lay Dying, Memphis May Fire, those like big metalcore bands at the time. And then in 2013 is when I got hired here in Indianapolis doing professional like t-shirt designs, but we did stuff for the Pacers, the Colts, just because, the local teams. And then we did stuff for the Fever as well. And WNBA, for anyone who doesn't know, the Indianapolis Fever. And then, is it Indiana or Indianapolis Fever?
That's a good question. That I don't know.
I think it's Indiana Fever. I don't think it's Indianapolis. I think it's the state team. And then we did stuff for like Washington Redskins. Who else did we have? I'm trying to think of football and basketball teams that we had. There was Harley Davidson, or the Screaming Eagle Harley Davidson. Some NHRA teams, National Hot Rod Association. I don't want to say NHRA. People think it's like NRA. It's not NRA. It's NHRA. Totally different things. So National Hot Rod Association, I did a lot of stuff for, and then and Kobe Bryant, whenever he was retiring in 2016, I did his line of retirement. I think I did most of it. There was one or two of the people in the artist team at that company that were doing it, but I think I did probably about half the designs for that initial line, the hero villain line in 2016. And then that's whenever I left in 2016 because I was just like, I felt kind of stifled there. Like I wasn't able to, I just wanted to get better. Like, so I was more into the comic stuff. So that's when I started discovering like Mike DeBalfo, Art Germ. I was always a Frank Frazetta fan. But when I discovered like those digital artists coming into like mainstream, I was like, oh, I want to do this. And so I tried to change my direction around 2016.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
This is what obviously everybody goes through evolutions.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
If you're not evolving, I mean, you're going to die. I'm going to put it nicely.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things where you got to constantly move. You got to constantly be getting better, getting sharper.
Yeah, you always be learning. Like, I think that's definitely important. Always be learning and like always be open to like new techniques, or I mean, just learning the trade and like,
or even thought process, because things in comics, just alone in the last 5 years, a thought has changed in comics without a doubt, in which what used to be okay, and I'll just say what it is, not safe for work, has been relatively stifled, and now the dam has broke. And
I don't really know too much about like what it used to be versus now, because I don't really follow comic releases. I just know the art.
I'll put it this way: 5 years ago, full frontal covers were not a thing. Now,
like, was Zenescope like one of the few or only ones doing it? Like, say 10 years ago.
The topless stuff has always been around. It's always been suggestive, and Baggerl art's been here and there. And Zenescope has kind of Zenescope, and I said this to, I think, Ralph the first time I interviewed him. I said it to Joe, and Joe and Ralph both viewed it as a compliment, and it was meant to be. Is that I think they replaced Top Cow, what Top Cow was, because Top Cow kind of went under, and then 2004, 2005, Zenescope popped out, and then 2008 was when Zenescope hit their stride in a lot of ways with Wonderland.
Yeah, that's about when I discovered them, was like 2009. I think J. Scott Campbell did he do some covers for Zenescope as well?
He did some Wonderland stuff.
Yeah, the Wonderland stuff. Yeah, and then Art Germ as well. I think that's how I found Art Germ.
Art Germ did some Robin Hood stuff, and then Ebass was there from kind of day one.
Elias too. Finding his work. Once I saw their work, I was like, oh, I really want to do this.
Because, and I guess my question is that, what is this like? Because obviously you're doing design work and you're doing stuff of that nature, but what is that like to say, cool, I want to grow and break out of this? Because that's where I think things are complicated right now in art. And I've said this and I've gotten shit for it. And I mean, this is going to be a negative opinion, and it's fine if you want to criticize me for it. I said AI art is going to force a very interesting position. It's going to force artists to evolve.
I don't know if you're wrong. Like, it's because it needs to be thought about. It shouldn't be ignored. I would agree with that. And I think it is a hard topic to approach.
So I will say it the way I will say it. I go into a comic shop and there's 5 covers that all look the same by 5 different artists, and they're all are not badly drawn, but they don't have the pop factor. And so now you have a 6th one, and I call it the 6th man on the court. Now, not to make basketball references, but AI now comes up and bam, and now this is how I think. I think AI is going to force people to say, holy shit, we have real competition. We got to get better. And it's a very negative opinion. It's a hard thing to say, but that's my opinion on it. where
Mhm.
I'm not a fan of AI art, but I'm not a fan of AI for a different reason. I think it's stealing.
Yeah, and like I'm really glad to hear you say that, because I think a lot of people are starting to have the same mindset, which is a huge relief to me as an artist, because a big part of me being an artist is integrity and knowing, like, showing where your influences come from. And I just I don't think you're wrong in the sense, but I think maybe you're getting negative feedback, because it is a hard topic to approach, but I don't think it should be ignored. I think it's really important that everyone face it and talk about it. And I think that's something we should do, because that's how people are going to understand how it's made and why it's cheap and why it's counterfeit art, is by getting it out there. And like, so people like the everyman who's not an artist understands how it's produced, and they're going to realize that there's no real like discipline, into it. And that's the big thing about being an artist, is like,
So
I spent 10 years cultivating my style. And, I could go on for probably hours just talking about this. Like, I don't want the interview to last that long, but like, I could go on
I'll
for so long
explain
about it.
my position, right? So
Mhm,
everybody's taking, oh, it's stealing an artist's job. I go
mhm,
even simpler than that. I say it's taking an image it doesn't own and
mhm,
it's combining it and it's stealing it.
mhm,
So I have a very different value on this. And I think
mhm,
this is I think the argument, because this is my view, right? I take the position that I can't put Spider-Man in my comic book.
mhm,
That's
right.
stealing too.
Mhm,
So I take it as a stealing position.
mhm.
Somebody can't take this interview and put it on their YouTube channel.
Claim it as theirs. Yeah,
That's stealing my
of
work.
course. Yeah, of
So,
course.
so that's where I go. I don't
Mhm,
even look at it from an AI perspective or a machine did it. I think that's the wrong mentality
mhm,
completely. I think it's an even basicer position. It's stealing. So if you're taking a Snickers bar from CVS and you didn't pay for it,
mhm,
or you're taking an image and you're taking 20 and you're combining them to make something new, I
mhm,
get that it's creative work and that there's laws that say, well, it's transformative to some degree, but
mhm,
you're still stealing
mhm.
something. So that's my position on it, and I think everybody doesn't want to have a conversation about saying I think it's stealing.
I don't. Yeah, I don't know.
That's how I view it. That's
Yeah, and
that's
that's fine. Like,
it's
I don't really
stealing.
care as long as you have a negative opinion on it. That's all I care about. As long as you hate it, I don't care why you hate it. Just like, it's, yeah. How do we transition onto this?
The
Uh,
reason how we transitioned onto this is that it's forcing evolution.
oh yeah, and like,
This is where I'm
that's
going, in which that
yeah,
I
yeah.
like
Oh, because you mentioned the
force.
5 covers that look the same. And I mean, I think that kind of happens with every like musical genre, art genres. Like, things start getting recycled, and people, they copy off each other in a way which, um I guess people could argue that that's stealing, but still you have to learn the skill, and you have to discipline yourself to, just because, say, my art when I first started probably looked exactly like another artist because I was still learning a style, but then as you discover more artists, that style gets
If
influenced into
you
your
look
own personality.
if you look at my first 50 interviews,
Hmm,
they are very stiff and they look like a stiff interview.
hmm,
And there is a style. Obviously, there's no question that I watched a Larry King, a lot
hmm,
of Howard Stern, a
hmm,
lot of the way Dave Rubin interviews, a lot of ways Ben Shapiro interviews,
hmm,
and Barbara Walters, I want to say.
hmm.
And I think that's her name off the top of my head. Um, and so a lot of my styles and my early styles looked like that, but then I slowly came into my own
Right.
style.
Hmm.
But I don't think I was stealing.
No, it's not stealing. I mean, it's getting influence, and like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, even with, when I was in, going to art school, one of our assignments one time was to find a painting of an artist that we like, and we're going to copy it as close as we can, just to try and like deconstruct their methods, which I thought was really interesting. And you can claim it, I get that painting as your own, but I feel like you should also be, um like, force isn't the right word, but you should also be expected to credit the original artist. Like, when a musician does a cover of a song, you have to credit the writer of that song. You could say like, well, I performed this version, but the song was originally performed and written by this artist. And I think that should be required with AI or like anything. It's like, okay, I used this tool. This is AI. I think that's my big thing is like, if you produce an image with AI, I think it should be forced to show that like this was not drawn by hand. Like this was not created by a human. This was created by an artificial intelligence. Artificial making it counterfeit because it's artificial. It's not genuine.
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, and this raises a whole nother question about what does AI look like with comic book writing, and what does that look like? And so the whole topic is extraordinarily complicated
Of
because in
course.
that
Yeah.
regard, and I have questions even about this, and I don't know, and it's a little bit off topic, but I think it's relevant. Is that I write my interviews by hand, and I think about what I want to write.
Right.
But what if I had an AI? What if I had ChatGPT write this whole interview? But I still have to perform the interview.
Right.
Is that technically an AI interview, or is that an AI tool that's helping me do it? And this is what raises complicated questions in this whole
It is
space.
because it's like, then is it really yours? I don't know. It's I feel like it's just lazy and it's kind of cheating in a way. Like it's not creative at all. And like, um, yeah, it's if you told me that an AI wrote these questions that you were asking me, I'd probably think less of you. Honestly, I'd be like can't you just get creative?
I'll give you an example of an AI tool. So when I want to create a YouTube description, I can give ChatGPT an idea what the video is, give it some keywords, and it could write me a paragraph description, and then you modify it slightly, or it could give me saying, cool, I have a description, and I give it some stuff, and then it writes me 400 tags. But I don't think that's necessarily cheating. I think that's
I don't think it's like necessarily evil to use it in certain extents, but when people are claiming like, oh, they just post it to Instagram, like look at this image, people are going to assume like, oh, you created that, like it looks good, so it must have taken time, and that adds value because it took time to create. But people don't know that it was created by AI, so it's like you're stealing the praise in a way. Like you just want praise without actually doing the work, and that's where it like really makes me sick. It's like, man, like just be genuine.
But isn't it indicative though of I mean, I don't know how old you are. I'm 31. So what I find is that there's a generation, and it's partially my generation, it's even a little bit above the generation above me and some of it down below me, that says we want instant praise now. And I've had this conversation with people who don't want to come on my show. They're like, you need 5,000 views and you need 2,000 subscribers on YouTube. And I'm like, how many people really have that who are interviewing voice actors? And what you're looking for, and I got the sense that the guy just didn't want to do it. If you didn't want to do it, you should have just said, I'm not interested, and it would have been fine. And you would have come off maybe like a dick, but you know, I would have not been played around with. But I think that there's a generation that wants instant gratification, and that's where the AI stuff comes from. Bam, took me 25 minutes to build it per se. So, and then bam, you get that going on, and that's what I think happens.
I don't even know if it's a generational thing. It might just be a human thing. Like humans are wired to want instant gratification. It's just maybe it's the world that generation or those generations are growing up in, kind of like feeds into that. But I think if any human or even an animal for that matter was given an opportunity for instant gratification, like they would probably take it. And I think it's just maybe being presented to them, and that's why. But I don't know. It's it'd be an interesting experiment to do with like previous generations versus like a Gen X or a Gen Alpha or something like that.
Speaking about that, luckily this is a science lab. No. But the reason why I bring all this up is that I am curious what it's like, because obviously you wanted to get out of designing and doing, I guess, graphic design might be a good word to use, and get into something that is obviously more creative. I think comics are more creative and comic art is more creative. And looking at people like Mike DeBalfo and then other people like that, I mean, what was that like? Because obviously as an artist, I think you want to say, cool, what can I do that's better than what I did yesterday?
Yes, for sure. There was a whole instance. Let's see. So I left that company in 2016, and I would say around December 2015, I started like thinking like about an exit strategy. I'm like, how can I get out of this? Because I was thinking to myself, like, man, the only way I would stay at this company is if they paid me like $100,000 a year. If they paid me like a doctor's salary, I would maybe stay. Like, that's how like numb I had become. I was like, I need to get out of it.
You last 6 months more. You wouldn't last
I was
year.
there for like, I think I was there for about I was close to 3 years I was there total, but I left it was March of 2016. So, but for 3 months, I spent January, February, and March doing different phases of an exit plan I had created. So I like carefully planned this out about like January, I needed to start getting some freelance clients lined up. And then by February, I needed to have a new computer built so that way I could create the new art. Like I wanted to upgrade like everything. I wanted to, because I knew I was going to be strapped for cash once I left this. I'm going to be strapped for cash for a while. I want to make sure I can upgrade my computer, get what I need. That way I can last for a long time. And like, you only have to worry about food and rent really after I leave. So I saved up a certain amount of money, rebuilt my computer. And then in March, I secured some side income. I actually got a part-time job as a shoe salesman at Stout's Footwear here in Indianapolis. It's the oldest shoe store. They claim to be the oldest shoe store in America, but in reality, it's the oldest continuous shoe store. So there's some that I'm going into the history of shoe stores now. There's other shoe stores that claim to be older, but they closed at one point, or maybe they switched owners. This one's been owned by the Stout family for 5 generations now. So I worked there for a year and I learned a lot about shoes. I totally have a new respect for shoes. Like I pay close attention to things that separate you from the ground. Anyway, I did that for a year working part-time, and it kind of allowed me that flexibility to work during the day when all my friends and roommates were also at work. I could work on my freelance and art. And then on the weekends when everyone wants to go out and party, I'm like, well, sorry, I got to work my part-time job. So that way I'm making money while everyone's like, I had to sacrifice a lot of my social time. And that's part of what adds the value to the art to me, is the sacrifice and the discipline that I put on myself to be able to do this.
So let's talk about this too, because I'm going to use a trope, the starving artist.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. And I remember someone asked me while I was at my part-time job, like, so, what do you do full-time? And I was like, well, I'm doing freelance art right now, and I'm really trying to build that up. And they're like, oh, are you staying busy with that? And I'm like, well, you have to be busy, because if you just wait for clients to come to you, like, you're not going to be busy. But if you generate your own work and put yourself out there, then you make yourself busy, like make your own work. And then people, like clients, are going to come to you because they're going to see the work you're putting out there, whether or not you're getting paid or not. You have to invest that time in yourself by creating work and getting better. Like, you can't just, like I said, you can't wait for clients to come to you. And I told him, I was like, yeah, it's like a 6-day-a-week job. Like, you can't just tell people you're an artist and hope people trust you enough and give you work. You have to put that trust in people by presenting work and basically selling yourself to everyone with the work you're putting out. And luckily, like, the work I was putting out was just, the digital painting stuff, the stuff I wanted to focus on. Like, I didn't know in 2016 that I wanted to do comic covers. I just knew I wanted to do digital art. So I started doing more like digital painting stuff and going that route. And then I started doing conventions that same year. And that's when I was just selling prints of like my Mario print or my Zelda print. I started doing stuff that I liked, just retro video game prints and selling that. And then that's where people come to me for just personal commissions, things like that, until for a few years until I started doing the comics in 2021. I switched part-time jobs in the meantime, things that made more money, like things I could work less hours but make more money, because I want to devote more and more time to art. So I worked for a LED company for a few years too, like 3 days a week. And then I would have time in between then just to work on freelance and put out more work.
So let's actually talk about this, because obviously I do this and I've set up my show and my interview stuff that I do is I work a 40-hour work week. I'm lucky that I only work 1 day in my office and I work the other 4 days from home.
Nice.
Maybe once a month I'm in twice in my job. But my commute's 50 miles. So everybody's don't feel so nice to me. Yeah. 50 miles one way, 50 miles the other. So thank God I only have to go in.
That's like, that's a week's worth of driving you do in 1 day.
It's on a Monday too, so we get it out of the way, and then the rest
Yeah.
of the week goes downhill, which is
Right.
nice. And then Friday, I'm done at 4:00. I'm just
Okay.
done, and I
Yeah,
pretend
you're
to work
spent.
for the last hour. I pretend to work for the last hour. It's great.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do that.
But don't tell my boss that. Oh, he doesn't
No,
even do that.
this isn't public, is it? You might have to
But
edit that part out.
all jokes aside, but obviously I set up my show a particular way that I could do it at night, and that a lot of stuff and a lot of editing when breaking up micro content gets done at night or on the weekends for that reason. Because again, you have to figure out where you want to go, but you have to live too. And what is that? Because I think people forget that you could be doing comics, but also it's really hard to make a full-time living from comic books. Really hard. And even as a writer, it's hard. And I think most people who are doing this are not doing it as their sole job. And even the people who are, I'm questioning how much money are you really making? And there's a variety of people that I have a lot of questions for. And the reason why I ask this and I have my thoughts is because a lot of people are late on their comics.
Yeah, and I think that could definitely be it. Because if they have another part-time job, I've noticed a lot of turnaround times for things are very quick. And so if you have a full-time job or a part-time job and also writing for comics, and your due date is like, I mean, I don't know how long it takes to write comics. I don't write, but I know with a cover, if someone told me I needed to have a cover in 2 weeks and I'm doing a full-time job, like there'd be no way. I would for sure be late on it. But since I do it full-time, I can devote all that time to that cover. So actually, I just finished a cover for Zenoscope. I think he gave me 3 weeks. It took me 2 weeks to do it because there was 1 week I couldn't do it. I was at C2E2, but I spent nearly 2 weeks on it, just like nonstop. And so if I had had a full-time job, there's no way I'd been able to do it by the due date.
So I have a different viewpoint where I think the people who are doing it full time and then they're running companies, I think that there just isn't enough capital. And I think what's going on, I think why they're late is that I think it's becoming a Ponzi scheme. I have a very cynical opinion about comics right now.
Okay.
People who are producing anywhere from 12 to 18 books a year in a particular company or multiple companies, I think they're robbing Peter to pay Paul. And I think because I think that the expenses to produce comics are so great between printing a book, it's gone up. You need to pay people to help you. You need to be supportive of people. You need to, if you have a full-time staff, all of a sudden, I think that at the end of the day, there's very little money to be made in all of this. So if you do a $50,000 campaign, but you have 3 employees,
Right.
that thing you do 4 of those a year, 200,000 does not go that far if you have 3 employees and an owner.
Right.
And so I think the reason why books are late is that people are running 6, 7, 8, 9 campaigns because campaign 1 gets paid for partially by B, or it's a cash flow issue. So
I'm not sure. I haven't ran a Kickstarter in years. That was another thing I did. I wrote my own book, Dusk Rider. The first one came out in 2018, and part 3 came out in 2020. But I haven't been able to touch it since then because I've been so busy with other covers. I haven't really been able to have a chance to get into it. But it's been a while since I've ran a Kickstarter, and they were nowhere near that amount. I think the most I ever did on mine was like $4,000. And to me at that time, I was like, oh, this is so much money. But then I realized how much work has to go into it. I'm like, I'm making like minimum wage, maybe, like doing this. But at least it's enjoyable. I can work my own time.
If you're lucky, you make minimum wage.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess at least you're doing what you want, which is nice, but like it's a trade-off.
It's tricky. So let me ask you about Dusk Rider, because this is my whole thing, is that this is my question to everybody who creates a comic. What are your margins on your book? And what is the expenses? And are you in the red or the black? And I understand you have ownership of a property. So we have to also count that in there. But is this going to be optioned at some point? Is this going to be sold at some point? Even if you go to a place that publishes books and they take it, and what are you going to make? $300 if 10,000 of your books get sold after it gets all cut up, said and done. And I understand there's clout, but is this about money or is it about glory? Because I think that obviously I think anybody, hopefully, you obviously care about comics and doing a good job on a cover.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think you're like, look, this is my job and I want to make money too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is the common mistake with comics right now with, people who are writers is I think a lot of them don't understand that this is a business. It's not
Possibly.
It's cool to be passionate about your business and love your business. But if you want this to be a business, you got to treat it as such, which means you got to say, look, I got to figure out how to write this thing efficiently and I figure out how to publish this as cheap as possible, that I have to get my whole thing done for $4,500, including printing.
No, it's a lot. So when you ask about margins on the book, so the book I print now, I don't sell a lot of, but like to my credit, I don't necessarily put it up front, like at my table, because I'm putting up all my comics. When it comes to conventions, I put up all my comics up front. I do put my book in there, but it's never like the forefront anymore because it's harder to sell my own original property. But when someone sees like a Merc or a Zenoscope comic, they're like, oh, I want these. Those are going to sell faster. So I put those up front because that's what people know me more for. But when it comes to the margins on the book I print is an 8.5 by 11. So it's a pretty big book. But when you open it up, I did full size 11 by 17 paintings on the inside. So when you open it up, those paintings are at full size. That's what I wanted. I wanted to be able to people to see the art at the exact size that I painted it. And so when I print those that size, it's not going to cost, it's not cheap. And then the book is nearly 200 pages, full color on the inside. I do a gloss cover because I want it to look nice. So gloss cover, full color. So what I'm trying to say, perfect bound. It's 200 pages, so it has to be. You have a thick spine on it. Those cost me about $15 to print a piece, and I charge $30 for them because I'm trying to make obviously the money back. I got to pay for shipping on those books, and then when I'm at the convention, table's going to cost $400 or $500 for a table, so I got to make the money back on the table.
We're going to go economics, aren't we?
So it's like I'm charging 200% on the book, but like how much cost goes into just you being able to physically see this book? Like I had to print it, ship it, and then I'm also here at the convention, drove here with my own gas, staying at a hotel, buying my own food out of town, and then bought this table. So like, yeah, it cost me money to be here. So I need that $15 like profit.
This is my whole thing is that, so I buy, this is why I like talking about this. I love talking about money. This is like my favorite thing to talk about.
Okay. I don't like money, but I'll talk to you about it, but
no, because this is my whole thing. And this is why I don't want to do a comic. I looked at the numbers and I said, this is hell. This is hell. In which that this is hell. And it's such a big risk for such little margin, and it's bloody. And I look at this and it's a sea of red, and I'm just like, no, thank you. Yeah. I don't want anywhere near this. I'm happy to buy a book and try to sell for $50.
I've never had anyone tell me my prices were too high. I'm
not saying that either.
I know. I'm not getting that.
This just seems hell because you got to spend money to produce something. Most people are either an artist or a writer, so you need a partner. You got to deal with another person who could be good or bad. Maybe they're fucking you over, because every artist gets fucked over and every writer gets fucked over one way or another in comics. And now you got to then go to a con. You got to drop $400 for a table. Let's say you drop $250 for a table and you got to stay over.
That's a cheap con if it's $250. I mean, they do happen, but it's a cheap con.
Fine, it's $400. I'm picking. Okay. I'm being generous to prove.
Right? Yeah, exactly. You're being generous.
My point is even worse if I'm generous.
Yeah.
Is that all of a sudden, in order for you to break even, if your table is $250, your hotel is $250, give or take. Food is going to run you $100 if you're there for a day or two, right?
Right.
Regardless of how you look at it, because you got to eat in if you skip a meal. So now we're looking at $500, $600. Gas is hopefully it's close enough that gas is going to cost you $25. So we're looking at minimum $625. But then on top of that, you still need to print and bring merch.
Right.
That has to go into this, and you have to calculate that. So you're at $1,000.
Yeah, I would say like $1,000 is what like you need to make it a show to make it like worth your while.
You need to make $1,500,
and that's like and I'm saying like just to make it like should I have just stayed home this weekend? Like, is it even worth it?
This is why I want to stay home and I don't want to do comics because I don't
Because,
want
and
to
if
do
you
that.
think
I
about it,
want
if you
to crack
just
a
make,
beer and I want to watch basketball or football or baseball, or I want to go to Starbucks and spend $15 at Starbucks
or think
versus
about,
a
even
grand.
if you go to a convention and you make some money back, then you come home at the end of the week or the weekend and you're like, all I did was lose product. Like, I didn't even make any money. All I did was lose merchandise because the money I got was like the money I spent. So you net zero, but you've just lost product is really all that happened. It's
So,
like someone could have just broken into my house, stole comics, and then it would have been less hassle than going to a convention and selling them.
or what I've been saying to people, and it's impossible. I'm like, I want to buy comics from people. Can we figure out wholesale?
Yeah.
You know how many people I've approached with that, and they're impossible to deal with, and it kills me. And obviously, right now, I'm not interested because I have more than enough product. But a year and a half ago, I approached like 10 people, and I'm like, let's figure out wholesale, and they don't want to talk to me. And I'm like, you could have made a $500 sale over Facebook,
Yeah.
over a 10-minute phone call, and
Yeah.
you could have made more money with me than you could have made at a convention. And it blows my mind, and this is why. In which this is why I like my show is I have just as much, I guess connections in comics if I wanted it by interviewing people than me being at a show.
Yeah.
I don't think I am a global entity. By
I mean, I
definition,
like both. I like being able to deal with people just online. Like, someone buys something from my website, I'm like, oh, easy. I can just drop it off in my mailbox. But I like doing conventions too. I like seeing people and meeting them. That's my social time. If I don't go to convention, like, I probably talk to maybe 4 people in my life. So I need to be able to talk to more people.
I mean, I get it, but I deal with a lot of people in general, and if I want social time, I have friends, and I'll go to a bar. And I'll find a cute girl and I'll try to talk to her. That's how that goes. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Hey, it's all right if you hit 300, you're in the Hall of Fame in baseball. So, but my point is that, like, it just seems hell to me. It seems hell, and I am so anti-convention, and this is why I don't want to do a comic book. I can make just as much money buying other people's works and selling their books than I can creating my own. In fact,
and like, things that seem like hell to me are like managing a social media and trying to figure out like what my price point is. Like, I don't want to deal with money. Like, I just want to draw. Like, can someone else just do this for me? But then at the same time, I don't want to have to pay someone to like be my manager. Like, I just want someone to do it. I don't know how to explain it. Like, I just want to draw and like just put money. Like, as long as I can make enough money to eat and like live in my house, like, I don't really care. I don't need to make like $1 million. I just want to make enough money to just live.
You're so different. You're so
I know.
different.
Yeah, and that's fine. Like, I think it's great. I think it's great that there's 2 different types of people. If everyone was like you, or if everyone was like me, the world would be screwed. Like, it just wouldn't work.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. That is very true. Again, I want people to be educated with their money because my objective is very simple. My objective is very simple. I want to create income producing assets that pay my mortgage.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Every single month. That's all I want to do, and I'm gonna get there. I'm getting there slowly, but all of a sudden, if I eliminate a major bill in my life and it accelerates my house payment, because I will then make another house payment on top of what my income generating assets are producing, and I'll pay my house off in 8 years versus 30.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome.
And that's what I want to do in my life. And it's very simple. And again,
have a house paid off by the time you're 40 and like just be done. Be awesome.
I mean, I'm not, and then if I have kids and then they're 8, I'm going to get their college fully funded.
Right.
I'm going to make sure that they get a scholarship because your 529B plan apparently is your college savings plan. I think that's the number. If it's not fully used after, I think, 10 or 15 years, it could be rolled over into a Roth IRA tax-free for your kids. Which basically means that if you do it right and you make your kids really smart and you put a lot of money into their college fund, they get a massive head start and becoming really, really wealthy tax-free.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. But
I know all the rules. I know all the rules. Terrible. That's one good thing that the IRS has done in the last 20 years. Continuous of the hobby is another good one done by Joe Biden. That's
okay.
Continuous of the hobby, for those who don't know. And again, this is not tax advice. It means that if you have a hobby and you spent money to your hobby, it becomes a non-taxable event. So if you buy 2 comics and you sell one of them, pays for both of them, it is a non-taxable event. So, but it makes sense, right?
Right.
So this also applies in this regard. If you buy a book and then you upgrade that book and then you sell the book that you didn't upgrade and it covers the upgrade cost, it's not a taxable event. But it makes sense, right? Because you're not making a profit, you're just continuing a hobby. So it's a good IRS code, and it's a good addition to the IRS because it actually is helpful. So when I go and I sell a book for 80 and then I buy a CGC book of the same type for 90, that's a $10 loss. I should not pay taxes on the gains, even if that book cost me 20. Because I bought a better version of that book for my personal collection.
You've upgraded.
So that's the best thing Joe Biden's done for
again, not legal tax advice, but
I mean,
I'm not saying not to follow it. I'm just saying, like, you have to put a disclaimer there so that you're not like a licensed.
I'm not an accountant,
right? Yeah.
I don't want to be yours either.
Yeah. I'm not looking. I wouldn't be able to pay you enough because I wouldn't be able to pay you in money. It'd have to be something else.
Most people can't pay me in money anyway. I accept Bitcoin now. I absolutely do accept Bitcoin. But no. But I think this is interesting because, again, I'm curious, since we're on cons, you were at a bunch and you're going to another one tomorrow. And what is that like? Because I haven't been to a convention in almost 5 years.
So tomorrow I'm doing Motor City Comic Con, which I've never done before. Which I'm excited because I'm excited to see some new people. I just did over the past 2 months. I did Kansas City, the Planet Comic Con, and then Indiana Comic Con, which is like the hometown show for me. And then I did C2E2, which was possibly my best show I've ever done. It was awesome. I was there with Clan McDonald Comics, who were in, they're in Chicago, but it's like this West Chicago. I forget the town they're in. Anyway, yeah, it's like far west side of Chicago, but they were able to guest spot me because I was on the wait list for C2E2. So I was like, well, I'm going to try and like backdoor my way in. So I contacted them and Comics Elite, but Clan McDonald was able to accommodate me. So I was there with Sora Sung, and we split a booth all weekend, a 10x10. But it was awesome. And then, I'll be at Detroit. So it'd be good to see some new people because those past 3 conventions, I've grown to see the same people, which is good to see them. I'm glad to see them every year, but you kind of expect it. Yeah, the Taylor Swift comics, those were pretty popular at Comics Elite. Actually, they were right across from us at the convention. I was at Clan McDonald. Comics Elite was right next to us. So I got to see that all weekend too.
That's because I've had Sean on. I've had Darren Davis on. That was a fun interview with Sean. A lot of things were said in that interview.
Oh, you had Sean on?
I did have Sean on.
When was that?
Oh, that was maybe February.
Okay, cool.
That started a proxy war between 2 people.
Oh no.
It's whatever. Made me a superstar. Again, it was ridiculous, and I did nothing because I found it to be trivial and ridiculous. I found the whole thing to be ridiculous, and both people did it and started a proxy war, made ridiculous statements about me that I think at some point it's going to be figured out in a court. But that's not the point. It's ridiculous. A bunch of people are babies in comics is what I've learned.
Okay. I try and stay out of that stuff. I don't get
I don't really care. I knew that people are going to like Sean and they're not going to like Sean, but that doesn't dictate who I speak to. And nobody tells me how to run my business. And that's the end of that discussion. And that's how it should be. I'm sorry. It's if you Arsenio Hall said it best. If you don't like it, get yourself a show and book it yourself.
Yeah, I don't know. You have to tell me that. I'm just I'm just here to chat. Like, yeah, I don't care who you interview, who you have beef with. Yeah, it doesn't affect me.
I know people watch. I know people watch my show and they need to hear that. I didn't say that for your sake. I said that
Oh,
for
okay.
a very different sake.
Yeah.
But again, I really enjoyed my interview with Sean. I had a great time with Sean.
Yeah, Sean's definitely an interesting, fun person to talk to. I always try and when I saw him at Clan McDonald, it was funny because like I was over there and Sean was like, "Oh, you switched sides." I'm like, "Well, in fairness, like I asked both of you to sponsor me, and I talked to Vicky at Comics Elite, but in fairness, like I asked both of you at the same time, but Clan McDonald came through. Vicky said they wouldn't have room, but they had Ali Garza already booked for their show." Which is great. It's like we had some good artists like right there in our little community. So it was like me, Ali, and then Sora Sung and I were both next to each other.
That's crazy. And we said again, I am not an artist. I wouldn't make it in that. I couldn't handle a con physically anyway. It's not my skill set. Like I understand that I'm really good in this setting that I'm in right now, and I like where I'm at.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, play to your strengths then.
And I have no desire. And again, right now I'm also in a different position because in the next year I'm buying a house. So no offense, but I don't really feel like doing a comic book, especially when I'm about to buy a house.
Yeah, so, well, congratulations. That's awesome.
In the next year or so, it's coming, which 12 months is not a lot of time. Figuring out, and then I'm probably going to retrofit the house too, which is going to be complicated in its own right, but not the point. But again, that's crazy though. So, but what is that like? I mean, I've never spoken to Sora Sung. I like her work. Obviously, that sort of stuff's fun. There's some other stuff that she's done. I think she's done some work for Tom Hutchinson and a few other people.
Yeah, her work is fantastic. She
seems nice. I just don't know.
She is very she's an angel. I briefly talked to her last year. So I was talking to Chris Enot last year. We were both at Fan Expo Chicago, and Chris was right next to Sora. And I knew Sora's name, but I didn't really know too much about her. But I was talking to Chris, and during that conversation, Sora was right there. So we were all kind of like chatting a little bit. But I introduced myself, and then this year, whenever we had the booth next to each other, Clan McDonald informed me we'd be splitting that. And I was like, oh, sweet. Now I get to finally get a chance to like actually know her. So, but yeah, I would say we became like professional friends by the end of it. I hope so anyway, because I really enjoyed her company. But
so what is that like? Because obviously Sora Sung has a big audience and she did a bunch of Taylor Swift stuff and a bunch of other stuff. And what is that like to be around, and splitting a booth with somebody who has their own audience and obviously attracts attention? And those Taylor Swift books were really hot. And Tidal Wave stuff, and Darren Davis was there, and a bunch of other people were around. And then Comics Elite obviously has a big, following. And so what is that like? Because it's tricky at shows, right? Because sometimes artists are not where they need to be. Sometimes they're scattered. And
well, yeah, that was one thing that she had told me. She's like, I think a lot of people expected me to be in Artist Alley, so they eventually found me over at Comics or Clan McDonald, and they said they had a hard time finding me, but I don't know. I had people come to Clan McDonald. Like, I don't think I had anyone tell me they were looking for me in Artist Alley. If they did, I forgot like that they told me that. But the people that I expected to see there, I did see. So I don't think they had a hard time finding me. I tried to, every one of my posts that I put out prior to the show, I made sure people knew, like, I'm going to be at the Clan McDonald booth. And I posted the booth number. Like, I'm not going to be in Artist Alley. Come find me there. But I know she had mentioned that. She's like, I think people assume I'm going to be in Artist Alley. So she still had plenty of people come up and talk to her. Like, she had plenty of people it seemed like they had talked to her before and knew her from maybe doing another Chicago show. So yeah, she definitely had the roundabout of people come through.
Because I think it's interesting, because I've been at shows where it's been set up shitty, and I've been at shows where it's been set up great. And
yeah, C2E2, I think it was set up great. I mean, they do the same thing every year, but it works. I think it works awesome. They have signs up. You can see exactly where you're going. You know exactly what aisle you're in. 1,300 aisles this way. Like, Artist Alley is that way, and here's all the letters for the Artist Alley booth. Like, here's A through Z. Like, exactly where you're at. I think it's very easy to navigate C2E2, and it has to be for as big as it is.
Fair enough. Again, I haven't been to a con in like 5 years.
Yeah, no problem.
I don't think I'm gonna. That's not true. I'm going to one in New York City, but it's for something else. It's sports related.
Oh, okay. Not a Comic-Con. It's a sports convention.
It's Fanatics is doing their thing. I mean, Fanatics owns Tops. I mean, you gotta go. It's just the way it is. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Well, plus it's close for you, right?
It's the Javits Center, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how close is it to Connecticut?
It's gonna be probably maybe like an hour, 15-minute drive.
Oh, yeah, that's like a local for you then.
It's home field, even though the Jav Center is a fucking the Jav Center is a piece of shit. But not the point. But again, it's cheap because I'm only going for the day. So a ticket is like $60 a piece, and I'm only going for the day, so it's not terrible. If I was smart, I would try to weasel my way in as press. That'd be fun. That'd be a lot of fun. I could have a lot of fun at that. But not the point. But again, I don't want to do Comic-Cons. Like it's just like New York Comic-Con is just not fun. I hate to say
it's
it.
a lot of. I mean, when I've done New York Comic-Con, I'm usually just behind the booth the whole time. But like when it comes to Saturday and especially Sunday, it's a lot of people, and it's just difficult to maneuver your way around. I don't know how it'd be spending all day being in the crowd. I spend all day behind the booth, so I think it's just a different experience.
I went once, and I had a good time, but it was not fun. It was tough to move, and it was also expensive.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm sure it is. It's expensive just to like be there, just to exist in New York City is expensive.
That's the problem. Is that I used to live in DC, and Awesome Con. In order to have a good time, and I'm curious what you think, because this is that I think you need to have $500 to $1,000 at a Comic-Con to have a good time. I think at an anime con you could have $200 and have a great time. At a Comic-Con or a pop culture con, I think you need $1,000. I really do, to have a really good time, because if you have $100, you could still buy some cool stuff, but it's really, really pricey now. And everybody's charging for signatures, whether it's graded, not graded, and everything has become so expensive. And so that's how I feel as an individual, is that, at an anime con, you could just hang out in a panel and it's not, you're not being sold something. At a Comic-Con, I feel it's just a gigantic mall.
It's always being sold. So I don't know. I've never been to convention as just like a guy. I've always been as to promote my stuff. I don't charge for signatures. But when it comes to, if like a comic shop came over with 20 comics and they wanted me to sign them, I'd probably charge them, I don't know, maybe $5 a signature. But if it's just an individual and you have like 4 or 5 comics you want me to sign, like I don't ever charge for those. I'll charge for remarks, but signatures, no, I don't charge for those yet. As in, like, who knows? Maybe in a couple of years, if I get like, if you're bringing up like stacks, like I'll have to charge you for those, because I got to pay for the Sharpies I'm using to sign all these things.
Yeah, but if somebody brings you like a Zenescope, 78, and it's just one copy of it.
No, I don't charge for it.
Because what's happened is that there's this big debate on charging for signatures and value and not value. And I think everybody's forgotten. And this is because I think what people have forgotten, and when they do stuff like this and how expensive it is that to go to New York Comic Con, it's $90 on a Saturday. So if I'm spending $90 and then you're going to charge me $20 for a signature, I'm like, bro, what the fuck?
No, I don't think, I don't know. I can't picture.
I think the upper echelon in comics has forgotten that. I really think
they have. You think they've like gotten out of touch, you're saying?
I think they have.
I don't know if I disagree with you, but I haven't been in it long enough. Like, my opinion could change if I ended up doing some covers for like Marvel or DC, and like I had people come bringing me books every day.
Again,
I don't know.
I'm very cynical and I'm very pessimistic, where I've experienced it as an interviewer, where there's a lot of people that I've helped and they won't speak to me anymore. And I've done nothing to them, but they've quote unquote gotten bigger. And I put up a post a while ago and I said, I think people have forgotten where they've come from. And a teacher of mine, a former teacher of mine, said some of these people are ashamed of where they've come from. I'm not ashamed of where I've come from. I'll interview somebody who has 100 followers on Instagram, and I'll interview somebody who has 1.3 million, and I'll treat both of them the same way.
Right. That's good. I mean, everyone's people, you know?
And so I think people have said, oh man, I made it. I can't go back to the gutter. I can't go back to the slum. And I'm like, bro, I'm not white carny trash, but I'm the same guy I was when I was in 6th grade.
Right.
Just because I'm a little bit more refined doesn't mean that my values
you're a different person.
change.
Yeah, and I've had that conversation before. Like, I still feel like I'm a 20-year-old guy. Like, I don't think my music tastes haven't really changed. Like, I'm still the same personality. I find the same things funny. I just have more wisdom now. Like, I understand what's going to happen if I take X action. I know what's going to happen. I feel like that's about the only difference.
I know that I can't drink as if I'm 20 anymore.
Right. You can, but you shouldn't.
On my birthday, I'm allowed to.
Right.
But beyond that, especially because my friends drive. So they're like, I'm the designated driver, and I'm not going to have anything. And then the rest of us, the 3 of us who are the rest, are like, okay, we could go get hammered now. And that's the point. But and we let the bartender know, hey, he's our designated driver.
Right.
Then we get it.
Yeah. Don't serve him. Yeah.
And so he, my designated driver, if we're going to be there for like 4 hours, he has a beer, and then that's it.
Right.
But the point is that I think that's the upper echelon as for God. And I think
I don't really talk to the like upper echelon too much, so I can't really attest to that. But it's sad, that's sad if it's true. Like I said, I don't have any experience with that. I don't charge personally. I don't feel like I'm there yet. I don't feel like I deserve to charge. Maybe that's it. I don't know. I just don't feel like I should charge.
That's interesting because I mean, let me put it this way. If I could get away with things, I will get away with things. So I have rules now on my show where if you're using creative services and massive creative services, when you're spending over like $1,500 on creative services, my response, if you want to interview, is, it's going to cost you $10. And the reason why is that you're spending a lot of money that I have to charge because you've already opened up the door to spend money. If somebody spent $100 on creative services for some design work on their Kickstarter, that's different. Somebody spent $500 on a cover, that's different because that's for your book. The second you spend anywhere over $1,000 for creative services, and there's a bunch of people who do it, right? I say, cool, we need to have a conversation now because you're spending a lot of money. I understand if you don't think that I should charge, but you obviously have no problem spending money on a variety of things, and I expect to be treated equal. Do you respect me? And those are the questions that are coming. But if somebody has 100 followers on Instagram and they're doing a brand new book and they need the help, I'm not going to charge somebody. But I think that there gets a point where you say, cool, somebody is clearly spending X amount of money on things. When somebody's running massive Facebook ads, and I have an idea what their Facebook ad budget is, I think it's okay to say, look, you're spending a lot of money on Facebook here, and you don't have a problem spending money. You might not find that I'm worth the money, but I'm going to ask within reason because I think I have to. And it's tricky when you're in situations like that. And I hate to say it, it sucks. I mean, I'll ask you this. If all the people around you were charging for signatures, would you feel compelled to charge?
That's a good question.
It's tricky, isn't it? You don't have
because it's almost like
there, right? The thought is, right?
The thought is like, I'd be undercutting these people, but you're not because you're offering a different product. Like you're offering your signature as opposed to everyone else's. I don't know. You stumped me. I don't know. I don't have like an immediate answer for that.
It's all right, but you get where I'm going with this.
Oh yeah, of course. That's a really good thought. Like it's a thought-provoking question. If like I was at a table with 5 artists, and they were all charging $5 a signature, I'm just like, I guess I probably would. I would just because I don't know. I don't want to be the one guy like everyone's gonna be looking at me now. Like, well, wait, how come he's not charging? I think I probably would. Because if that's like the going rate, I probably would feel compelled. Like that's the answer. I mean, that's what you asked. It's like, do you feel compelled? I do feel compelled, but I don't know if I would.
So
Or if
this
I
is my
should,
dilemma. This is my dilemma, in which
Okay.
that this is my whole podcast dilemma right now, is that a lot of people are using creative services. I
Mhm.
get that help with your Kickstarter and marketing your Kickstarter is a little bit different than an interview, but I'm looking at this saying you just dropped $1,500 in
Mhm.
a blink of an eye, and then you're asking me for an interview. Like,
Mhm.
what the fuck? Like, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to think?
Mhm.
And that's my point. And people give me shit for this, but I'm like, you got to look at it from my angle. Is somebody just spent a lot of money and then they still need my help and
Mhm.
they want my help for free, but the person that's supposed to be helping them and doing what I'm doing is not doing it, and that's why they want my help.
You feel like they're looking for a handout in a way?
I don't even know if it's a handout. I'm
Like,
saying
I don't know if that's the right term, but
no. I know where you're going with it.
Mhm.
It's not even the right term. I'm trying to think of the right term here for this, because what I feel is that I feel that somebody basically has just spent $1,500 and they know they're not getting the service they need, and then they're
Mhm.
looking for the free service
Okay.
because they know it's going to work, but
Mhm.
because they're out of money. And
Yeah.
I feel like I'm the last puppy at the litter.
I
That's
see.
what
It's like you were the second choice in a way.
I'm the second choice, and I'm the choice where somebody feels that, oh, this person, I paid money, and then this other person has a podcast, I could take advantage of that.
Mm.
And that's how it
Yeah.
looks like. That's how it
Yeah.
feels. That's how it's interpreted.
Yeah.
Whether that's accurate or not
Mhm.
is the issue. And then I'm saying to myself, also, why do you feel that it's cool to pay person A $1,500, but you don't want to pay me a penny, but you want to use my services,
Mhm.
and the person you paid should have freaking reached out to me? And I feel used is a good
Mm.
word.
Yeah.
That's the word, right? I feel
Mhm.
used and unappreciated. And this is my dilemma, and I feel compelled to charge because
Mhm.
somebody else is charging for
Mhm.
similar services. And in this vein, now I'm not going to charge $1,500 for an interview
Right. Yeah.
yet. Um, that's coming. That is coming.
Uh-huh.
I mean, Ty Lopez charges like 50 grand for
Mhm.
interviews, which is
Mhm.
insane. But he has like 3 million people, and
Mhm.
it's a business position, and you can use it as an ad, and then you have influence.
Mhm.
It's really selling influence. But my point is that that's how I feel, and
Mhm.
it's a similar dilemma, because it's kind of like, what do you do in these circumstances, right?
Mhm.
If somebody's charging $300 for a commission, you
Mhm.
know, and you're in, I mean, if you're in, I'm trying to think of, there are cons that are less affluent, right?
Mhm.
So you might have to charge less in a less affluent convention area than a
I
more
th-
affluent.
if you do charge, like, yeah, I would do that. I could fluctuate my prices, but I would also fluctuate the product you're getting. So if someone wanted a $50 commission, I'm still just going to do a $50. I would give you a cheaper option, but it's going to be the cheaper quality. Like, it's not going to be shitty quality, but it's going to be just like a headshot as opposed to doing a full body, full color. It would just be still good, but I can't give you 5 hours worth of work for $50. Like, I can't do that. But I could give you something that takes me maybe an hour or half an hour. But it would still look good. It would just be, I'd be able to do it quicker in a way.
So my point that I'm getting at with this is that this is my whole dilemma.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's similar, in which that if you're around everybody at a con is charging,
Mm-hmm.
where do you draw the line?
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is a problem, and I think it's a bigger problem in Kickstarter right now as well, and the whole comic realm, is what should be the going rate,
Mm-hmm.
and what is the bare minimum, and what is the whole thing, and also what is bulk, right?
Like, what's the standard? Like,
So I'll give an example on eBay. If I have Caitlin Clark cards.
mm-hmm.
If I had 20 of them. If somebody wanted, I'm willing to give somebody $1 discount if they bought 10 of them,
Mm-hmm.
or 50 cents off them, right? So I'm willing to sell for $7.50 or $7.25 if they bought 10, all 10 at once.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody didn't buy, if they wanted to buy 2, I can't really give you a discount because you're not buying in bulk.
Right.
So when somebody buys in bulk, like I've had somebody buy 10 of a card from me, and then they bought another 5, and I gave them a good discount of like 10% because they save me a lot of money on shipping and time.
Right.
So that's where I'm at, is that this is where I think this gets tricky about Kickstarter, is that I don't know what the going rate should be on books.
Yeah.
And
that's tough. I mean, I still don't know my rate should be. Like, I tell people that tell me at conventions, like, oh, your commission rate should be higher, or like, oh, your prices should be higher. But I'm like, I don't think like, I wouldn't pay that much for a commission. Like, I'm gonna price it what I think is fair. Like, if I start getting too many commissions, then yeah, I'll price it higher because I don't want that much work. But if it's something that I deem as fair, then I'm just gonna keep it at that price. Like, if I'm getting a comfortable amount of commissions, I'll keep it there.
I mean, I paid Elias Chasudis like $275 for a commission. I didn't even blink. I didn't even
And was
care.
his like a full body, full color, or what?
It was more of a bust with Copic marker.
Dude, like, his work is awesome. Like, and I've
Oh,
charged
great.
like $275, or I've charged like $250 or $300 for a commission, and people pay it. They know what they're getting, but my work's nowhere near as good as his. But like, I don't know, like, maybe I don't know why they would pay me that amount. Like, it's there. They know what they're going to get. And so I don't know what the value is. I feel like his could have gone for a lot more, because I've seen his commission work and it's fantastic.
I had a number in my head, like 350 is what I would pay for it.
Oh, for his, yeah. I mean, I don't know. His work is sharp.
It would still have to get graded. It would still have to do all that. So obviously, money was pumped into it. It wasn't just it was a blank book. The book was like 10. So it's not like I was handing him something, So there was probably about 350 pumped into it. I love the book. I love the commission. It's a personal book, but like, there gets a point where I'm like, everybody's got a number that they have to stop at.
Yeah.
350.
People that like do get the commissions from me, like, they come back and they want another commission. So I know, like, at least some people, I'm not like disappointing them if they keep coming back for commissions, because I expect if they're disappointed with the product after they pay for it, like, they're not going to come back to me for another commission, which is fine. But if they keep coming back, then I assume my quality is good enough and like the value is good enough where they can return. I don't want to rip anyone off, but like, I'm trying to make money as well, so I have to price it equally.
What is that like too? Because this is interesting, right? Because, and I'm curious what you feel, is that obviously you do commission work for people, and that's very much client to client, where that's a fan to you. So there's no company involved.
You're just talking about like sketch commissions at conventions?
Yeah. So like a sketch commission, or like on a paper, or on a blank comic.
Right.
So like a picture of Batman or Spider-Man.
Right.
Or Sailor Moon. I don't know if you've done a Sailor Moon yet, but
I actually did one. It was on a 9x12 paper, so it wasn't on a comic, but it was on a 9x12. I did it for at Planet Comic Con.
I'm on the Sailor Moon drive right now.
Oh, really?
Soaked into it. So every Monday and Friday, I put up a DZ Sailor Moon mashup. It's great.
Nice.
On YouTube, it's fantastic.
Yeah,
it's supposed to be fun, and it is. We're having a good time on YouTube, everybody. YouTube community is where it's at. There's some funny stuff that's up there. What
was your question?
So I guess is that's very much a fan to you, and it's not a business to a business. But then when you do a commission, and I'll throw one of these up here, hopefully this is a good one. So this is, I think yours is on a scope. And so that's more of a business to a business,
right?
And so that's a different relationship than a fan. But they're both valued, where if I come to you for a commission, I'm not Zenoscope. It's not a business coming to you. It's me at a con saying, I love your artwork, and I love, Batman, opening up a Jack-a-box and the Joker popping out, right? I come up with like a crazy idea, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, cool, I want to do this, right? And then come back in like a half an hour, man, I'll get it done.
Yeah.
That's a very different relationship, I think, than
for sure. And plus, the quality of the art isn't going to be as good with the commission. If you're doing it in half an hour and like it's just going to be black and white on paper, like it's going to be way simpler.
Or 90 minutes, or something that's ridiculous, right? If I tell you I want Captain America dressed as Sailor Moon, right? That's never going to be on a Marvel book,
right?
The point
of a one of a kind piece.
and I say I want to draw on like kind of goofy and anime like, right? Like that's a very different relationship. And that relationship between you and that fan is very different. It's still a
Right.
business relationship to some degree, but it's also a personal relationship.
For sure.
We're seeing when Dave Franchini calls you up, or Ralph calls you up, or Joe calls you up from Zenescope, that's a business saying, hey, we want to hire you to do a cover. And that's a whole different ball game, right?
Yeah.
So what is that relationship like? Because I'm curious how you feel about this, because I don't think a relationship ends with a business to a business once you hand them the cover.
No, I don't think so either. I think a big part of being successful, like as an artist, is being a comfortable person to work with. I always make sure to try to hit my deadlines. That's very important to me. So I think hitting your deadlines and being personable and just being friendly and like not being difficult to work with. I think you could be an amazing artist, but if you're just difficult to work with and like you're not friendly, like I don't think you're going to be successful. And I think a big part of it is just being flexible and like just being like, I don't know, having good relationships with people is a big part of it. Like my art is not the best, but I do think a big part of it is just being easy to work with and being friendly towards people and like building that kind of relationship.
Do you also feel, because I'm curious how you view this, is that the reason why I say I don't think it ends once you hand in the cover is that obviously I don't think you have an obligation to promote it unless it was put into the contract. But I do think that you want that cover to do well. You want it to sell out.
Always. Yeah.
You want it to appreciate in value, or at least be wanted.
I want it to sell well because I want them to come back to me for more work. Like I want to do the good work. So they're like, oh, this guy's valuable. We need to get him on another cover because this one sold out. That's the way I see it. I want it to be successful for them so that they can keep coming back to me.
Do you also feel that you also want fans to say, who the hell is this guy? Because I'll be honest.
Of course. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Who you were until Zenescope happened, right? I'm like, who the hell is Tristan Thompson?
Yeah, exactly.
Who the fuck's this guy, right? Like,
no, exactly. I want to surprise people. I wanted to surprise people. I wanted people to be like, oh, this guy came out of nowhere. And then like you went into my backlog of stuff and realized I had done stuff for Kobe Bryant and like those metal bands I did stuff for back in college. Which that was nice.
One. I don't know if you know Tristarr.
What's the name?
Tristarr.
I don't think so.
She's great. She's great. But I think she's either European or she's from South America, and now she's living in Canada. I had a great interview with her that was like an hour and 20 minutes or an hour and a half. And we went through a lot of cool stuff. And what it was is that she's done stuff and like she sold like a pinup for $20,000.
Holy moly.
Crazy. Amazing. She's an amazing woman. One of my favorite interviews, right? I just put up put a clip that's coming out in June of her Zenescope Star Wars cover where the character has a nice ass. The title of that video is great. Zenescope Big Butts. Great thing is because she was explaining it. It's a really funny clip, and it's hard to keep your composure when she was explaining it. But the point is that I didn't know. I thought she was a brand new artist for Zenescope, and then I looked through it. I'm like, holy fucking shit! She's got a whole backlog with Zenescope, and she's done a bunch of other stuff with pinups. And this is really, really interesting. But that's the thing, is that I think people sometimes don't realize, and this is what I mean. Where that's why I don't think a relationship necessarily ends once you hand over a cover, but some people think it does.
No, I mean, I hope it doesn't. I want it to keep going, especially with Zenescope. Like, I think they've helped me out a ton with like just being able to get me on covers. Like my dream in college, like when I was first starting out, I was like, oh my God, if I could just do a cover for Zenescope one day, like I would be done. I'd be done being ambitious. And then, Dave reached out to me and I was like, what? Like they reached out to me. I didn't have to like artist submission or anything. It's like he saw my work. I was like, oh, okay. Well, I think I must be good enough then if they're going to come to me for a cover. So that was a dream come true. That was one of the best day of my professional life. I would say, is like whenever I got that email from him. But I told you this on the previous interview. I was like, once he emailed me, I couldn't get it. He never emailed me back. I'm like, yeah, let's do a cover. I'm excited. And he never emailed me back. I'm like, what happened? Like, he was all excited. He wanted to get me on a cover, and I was all excited. And like, I gave him my rates, and I was like, was my rate too high? Like, what happened? And I think like 2 or 3 months went by, and I just emailed their info email. I'm like, hey, Dave reached out to me a couple months ago about a cover and never heard back from him. Here's some more work I've done. I'm just, getting back in line. Here's an artist submission. And they're like, oh yeah, Dave will reach out to you in a little bit. Your email probably just went to spam. And so like, I spent 2 months like in turmoil. I'm like, what is going on? Like, why would you reach out and then just abandon me? But that's what happened. My email went to spam when I replied to him. And I'm so glad that I, didn't just like let him ghost me in a way. I'm like, well, no, he reached out to me. I'm going to get an answer. Like, I cannot die happy unless I figure out why this happened. And so there I am now. Like, now I've built a relationship with him for like 3 years now.
No, because I think it's interesting, and I think that unfortunately there's people who have interesting opinions about this, and that's what I view. But again, I think that I think it's very similar to a child, and when you have an adult child as a parent, hopefully the relationship doesn't end. For a lot of reasons. Just because I'm 31 and my parents are older than that doesn't mean that I'm not their son anymore.
Right.
Doesn't mean that I don't have a relationship with my parents.
Yeah, just because you turned 18 doesn't mean like, okay, you're on your own. Like, don't talk to us anymore. You're done.
My sister has a baby and she's having another one soon. The relationship between my sister and my parents and her husband, that doesn't exist because my sister's older.
Right.
Like, it doesn't. It's the idea that, in fact, the relationship is now different because they have a granddaughter.
Right. It's different, but it's like, it's always going to be there.
But it's not that like, oh, she's 18. See you later, daughter. Right. You're no longer part of the family.
Like, you're done.
And I think that's because I think, unfortunately, there are people who view that. There's artists who view that. And I think it's kind of a weird thing. And
no, like, I can't think of anyone that I've done a cover for. I'm like, I'm never going to work for this person again. I guess even if there was, I probably wouldn't, drop their name here anyway. But I can't think of anyone I've worked with where I wouldn't want to work with them again. I always feel like I'm hungry for work. Like, if anyone asks me to do a cover, I have a really hard time saying no. Like, what would happen is, like, I'll tell you, like, I have these deadlines coming up and like, I can fit you in here. Like, I can fit you in like a month, but I can't do it now. So I have a hard time telling anyone.
This is interesting. I was speaking to somebody, I'm not going to say who, but they said you go to an artist and they just want to get it done the fastest and cheapest way possible. And they don't appreciate that you're hiring them and that you're paying their bill.
Oh my God. I couldn't imagine having that mindset.
I have a sponsor, right? My sponsor is Preston Poulter from Pocket Jack Comics. The point is that Preston is paying a lot of ways and taking a good chunk of my expenses on this show. It helps. And so I'm sorry, everybody, but I know who pays my bills.
But in that mindset, it's almost like I'm gonna trick you into paying me for a cover. Like, I want you to be so happy with the cover that you're like, oh man, I got to come back to you and like get another one. Like, I don't want to burn bridges in that way. I feel like that's a quick way to burn bridges.
What this person was explaining is that because you're talking about me potentially buying my own variant, is I'm going to go find an artist and they're going to try to get rid of the whole thing as fast as humanly possible. And they're going to hate the fact that they have to do because they want a big contract with Marvel where they want this and they view it as a chore. And I'm like, wait a second, I'm paying your fucking bill. I'm paying your rent today.
Yeah.
Like, how fucking dare you and how conceited are you?
Right. I mean, yeah, everyone wants the big contracts, but like, I don't know. I mean, if an independent person came to me and they wanted a cover, I'm not going to tell you no. Like, it's still a cover I can do. If it's
fan by any chance?
Wrestling fan? No, I'm not. I'm sorry.
This is
Here's the thing. I appreciate it for what it is. Like
Did you know the Cody Rhodes story? Let me ask
no,
that.
I don't. Enlighten me.
Cody left WWE with a multi-million-dollar contract because he was miserable, and he basically put a bunch of whiskey in his tumbler, and then he topped it off with Gatorade because he wanted to get fired. He was miserable. He then went, and this was before he formed AEW. He then basically wrestled on a show that had like 50 people in the audience. You go from a guy wrestling in front of the whole WWE universe, a legacy loved, appreciated, and now he's wrestling in front of 100 people in like a bingo hall, and he's loving it. And then he went to Impact, headlined one of their, not headlined, but was performing on their biggest stage, went to New Japan's biggest thing, and then did AEW's thing. All in the same thing, was on WrestleMania the same year. So the point that I'm getting at is that, but he's wrestling in front of like 100 people. Like you go from a guy and probably making maybe $2,000 that night at best, if at all that. But he's like, I'm gonna go put in the work and do the indies for a guy who's never had to do it. And then he goes and forms a rival company with a bunch of his friends. And now you have a situation where it wasn't beneath him. And that's what I think is also a problem right now in comics. And I'm just curious, is that a lot of people think that, oh man, Andrew wants to book a cover. He's never booked one before. It's beneath me to do a cover for him.
No, I don't think it's that. But I had a conversation with Chris Enoch, so like similar to that. So if you are an independent person and you're trying to like launch your Kickstarter, usually what happens with comics is you do the cover and you get paid for it, or you can take comps, or it's a little like a mix of both. So like you get paid a flat fee, and maybe we'll send you 15 free comps of the book that we can sell them at your booth. The thing about it is, like with independent comics, it's harder to sell those because it might be like issue 6 of some title they've never heard of. So like you're not going to be able to sell it. So to compensate for that, sometimes you have to charge a little bit more for those independent smaller ones, knowing that if you're going to get comps, you're not going to be able to sell them. But if I like do something for Zenoscope, I don't have to charge as much, because if I get comps for those, I'm going to sell out of those in no time. So it's just like you have to balance it. Like I don't want to tell anyone no, but like I do have to charge you more because the comps are going to be, I'm going to have those for years. Like I'm not going to be able to sell them as fast. So like that's where that fairness come in, but I don't think I would ever tell you no.
Because I tried doing something, and then I asked, and I said, cool, what's your rate? I said, okay, I'll pay you your rate. And then they changed their mind. But you quoted me like,
well, you should quote what you're willing to do. You can't just say like, well, oh man, I didn't think you were actually going to say yes to that amount. Like I just don't say no.
That was my whole thing, is that I'm like, wait a second, like you quoted me a rate. I said,
yeah, you should quote what it's worth to you. Like if it's worth $3,000 to you, then you should quote that. Like
comps.
Yeah,
I don't want to send you comps at all.
Yeah, then like you should just charge more
money. I just want to pay you money, and I want it to be strictly money. If you want to have equity, we could have an equity discussion. I had an equity deal with somebody on my Kickstarter that I ran 2 or 3 years ago, where he took half the merch of the metal cards because he was going to a bunch of cons and he wanted merch. It was cheaper for me to split merch than it was to pay. But that was the agreement. It was a beautiful agreement. So that's my point, is that sometimes in life, so if you like my concept of something, you want 50 comps and I'm getting 200 books or 250 books, great. We could have that agreement. But again, there's a position where we agreed and then you said no. Like,
yeah, that's almost like you had a verbal contract and then backed out of it. I mean, I don't know what the whole situation was with that weird instance, but I mean, that's how I do it. If I'm going to give you a price, like that's the price. If I really just don't want to do it, I'd probably just give you a really high price, honestly. I can't think of any projects. I mean, unless it's like something I would never be able to post out and like advertise. Like that's the only way I would say no.
Fair enough. No. My point though is that, and then if you quoted me 1,200 and you didn't want to disagree, yes, you would do it, right?
Right. Yeah. Like if I didn't want to do it and it was a higher price, then, but like you really wanted me to do it, I'm like, okay, that's what you want.
because I mean this is my point though, is that this is why I'm so hesitant though to do even a variant, because again, this looks like hell. in which that I mean, I've done the numbers on this. If somebody's going to charge me $300 and I still have to print 100 copies of this, and that's going to cost me $5 a book to print or $3 to print on that shit, all of a sudden I'm like, what? Let's conservatively, let's say I'm 800 in. I'm deploying $800.
You're right.
And that's a big risk to have 100 books that fills up a short box.
Yep, for sure.
Because it's not anymore the $800. It's the waiting. It's the trusting. It's trusting my gut that I picked a good cover or a good concept to drop downward for you. And then on top of all that, I now have merch that now
they have merch that now you have to sell.
And so I'm assuming a lot of risk. And because even if I'm selling on Whatnot or eBay takes 13%. Whatnot takes 13%, give or take. So I mean, Whatnot takes, I think, like 8%, and then they have a 3%.
I think it's 13 after everything, though. Like, and you add it all up.
It's 11 to 13%, give or take.
Yeah,
we're talking $1 one way or the other. The issue isn't the percentage; it's still 13% taken off. So now, I mean, I've done the math. So I basically at $800 for 100 copies, that's $8 a book, right? Then if I charge 20, 13% off of that, it's 260. So now I'm 1060 in is my break even point. But then taxes are added into that. So you got to add taxes in off of that 940. And you have other expenses. It's bagged and board. You got to ship to yourself. It's $4 a book in pure profit for a lot of fucking work.
Right.
So I'll make $400 on that whole trade. If I sell all 100 of them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the question: is that how fast am I going to sell it? And this is
and you just have books sitting around in your house too. Like you'd rather have that space for something else.
And the question becomes: is that what happens if we'll use Comics Elite because we still like them? At least I do. And I like Shikari a lot lately. What if Shikari has a bunch of good books? What if I buy 5 of his book and then I sell those for $45 a pop because they sell it really quickly? And I just spent $100 and I just made a clean $16 per book. So I just made $80 in 10 minutes or less on eBay. So like I buy $800 worth of Shikari, or I could buy my own variant. I think I'll take the Shikari a lot better.
Yeah, the safer one for sure.
I could make more money with Shikari than I could with this. I'll prove my point exactly where as soon as I find it, because I think I'm going to prove my point beautifully. If I could ever find what I'm looking for, which apparently I can't find because I'm really blind as a bat at night. Oh, here we go. This right here, I can make more money with.
Yes, I mean, it's a beautiful cover.
It's a beautiful cover, and it's Taylor Swift. So
yeah,
that's my point. It's hell. Yeah. I don't like this. I've single-handedly convinced myself not to do this.
Yeah, and that's fine. Do play to your strengths, like I said.
I'd rather just buy your covers than
commission me.
No, I'll commission you. I don't have a problem commissioning you. I just don't want to buy. I don't want to.
Do comps and everything.
I don't want to do a variant with people
right
now because it seems hell, and it's also because it's too risky. And I also have a different battle plan completely where I'd rather grow my following first and then have the audience versus having a product and then try to figure out the audience after.
Yeah, no, you definitely want to build an audience first, I would think. And that way you could, offhand your product as soon as you get it.
I mean, I've already started on YouTube where it's crystal clear where in the last, since January, I've grown. Where I've had about 68 subscribers in a very short amount of time. Last year I added 78 and I have more views than I had all of last year.
Oh, nice. Congratulations.
An audience is growing.
Yeah.
So I would rather wait till I have 2,000 or 3,000 or 4,000 subscribers on YouTube before you drop a variant. And then you actually ask, your audience, hey guys, if you're going to buy a comic, what would you buy? because that's what you really want to do. And the same thing with eBay.
Get the grand consensus over everything.
But also right now, and this kind of transitions where I think comics are in a rut right now in a lot of ways. I think they're very difficult to move. And I'm having a hard time on eBay moving books. I know people are struggling on Kickstarter massively. They're still funding, but they're funding in week 2 or week 3 when they used to fund in week 1. So if you were doing and you had a $10,000 position and you were funding in week 1, now you're funding in week 2. It's crystal clear that 1 or 2 things is happening. People don't like your product. 3 things, technically. People don't like your product, and they're no thank you. That's one. The second thing is that people like your product, but they're buying less of it because money's tight. Or it's that there's really a bunch of good projects around, and so they're having to choose between 3, 4, or 5 projects.
Right. Yeah.
And maybe they're divided by 2 of them, so they're spending $20 here and $20 there versus $40 with you. And so I'm curious what you think, because as somebody who's doing this, and just from what you've seen and what you experience on the, I guess, closed door business side, what is that like?
I mean, for me personally, like the past 3 conventions I've done, which was Planet Comic-Con, Indiana Comic-Con, and C2E2, they've all been like my best ones, like best ones yet. And that's just this year. So I would say Planet Comic-Con this year was the best Planet Comic-Con I had done. The Indiana Comic-Con, I don't know if that was the best one. It was really good, but I don't know if it was the best one. I haven't really kept track. And the C2E2 was not only like the best C2E2 I've had, but could be the best convention I've ever had. It was really awesome. But that's like convention side. Like I said, I don't deal with the Kickstarters like at all anymore.
I mean, let me ask you this then, because I'll rephrase my position. What do you notice? Because obviously you have clients and you do work for Zenescope, you do work for obviously Merc, you've done work for Comics Elite. I think you just did a book for Damsel by Murphy. So, what do you notice on that realm? Because clearly there's something that has shifted in Kickstarter and in comics, and I think it's tougher out there. I think the whole space is tougher right now.
I'm not sure. Like, I haven't done as many Kickstarters. Maybe that's it. Like, I feel like maybe I did more Kickstarters like a year or 2 ago.
Or we can just talk general comics, where I think the whole market is tougher.
I don't know. I don't really pay attention to the market at all. I just look for people to like give me assignments and do art. If I'm slow, I would probably do some sketch commissions and try and sell those off, but I'm not sure. I kind of just like, I try and budget my money so I can get through like slow seasons, but I've been pretty slammed the past couple months. So I'm not really sure. I wish I could answer your question better, but I don't pay attention because I don't buy and sell. I just do the art.
The only reason why I asked this is because obviously if you're getting slammed and people want commissions from you and want variants from you and want you to do a cover, then obviously you're in demand for, and it could be a lot of reasons. It could be that your price is right, your art is right. It could be that they just think that you're a perfect fit for the book. It could just be that, hey, we haven't hit Tristarr in 3 months and we haven't had him in the repertoire for Zenescope, and we need some new fresh faces in there. And we need to give, I'm trying to think of we need to give Alfredo a break. Because if we keep pumping the same artists on every single cover, it's going to get
stale. Yeah.
So if we sit somebody out on a bench for 2 months and we bring you in for one of those and we give you a pinch hit, I like these baseball analogies. They work. But if you're playing in game 2 and somebody's not, and then you're benched for game 3, but then you're brought back for game 7, you're kind of fresh.
Yeah, exactly.
And it mixes things up. And so, but
it was nice. Speaking into that analogy, I just wrapped up a cover for Zenescope last week, but before that, I hadn't done a cover for them in probably like 9 months, at least 9-10 months. I did the Zodiac versus Hydra. I don't know. Did you see that one? That was the last one I had done for them before. It's
not this one, right? That's no, Fairy Tales.
Yeah, it was just called Zodiac versus Hydra.
That's 74. I know the one you're talking about.
It was Tempest was the character on the cover. But that was the last one I had done. I think that came out in like summer or fall of last year. I forget what month I did that one in, but it was last year's comic. I hadn't done a cover for Warzone Scope since then. And then I was so glad that Dave reached back out to me, and I'm like, oh, you want to cover? Like, I'm not gonna like rush through this one. Like, you didn't come to me for 9-10 months. I'm gonna make this one awesome, and you're gonna be like, I'm gonna be like, oh, you're gonna be sorry you didn't come to me sooner, because I want to make this one as good as I can. So I think it turned out great. I have no idea when it's gonna come out, but I was in that mindset of like, you didn't come to me for this long. Now I'm gonna show you what you've been missing.
It's kind of funny.
So I mean, and that's how I challenge myself to like put out my best work, because sometimes I get done with a cover, I'm like, man, I don't really like how this one turned out, but the customer likes it, and I'm like, okay, well, as long as you like it, and like I don't want to feel like I cheaped out on you or anything. But there's definitely covers I make where I'm like, I feel like this could have turned out better, but this is the deadline, it needs to be done.
That's how I feel about a lot of interviews, and I'm just like, fuck it, I don't even care.
No, I mean, I care, and like I think about it, but like you can't dwell on it. You have to just move on to the next one, and like you have to make the next covers better, because you can't show people that you're slacking off. It's like, maybe that one cover didn't turn out how you wanted it, but if you can do better on the next ones, then it shows like, okay, there was just like one bad cover. Like, you're not slipping, you're not cheaping out. It's like, I just have one cover where I didn't care about, but dude, it doesn't even make sense, because sometimes the covers I think I didn't do that well on, that's someone's favorite cover. Like, this is the best thing you've ever done. This is awesome. Like, what are you talking about?
Isn't that funny, right? Because
it's I thought like frustrating.
I thought I had a horrible interview with Steph Wilson, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, dude, this was great, man. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm like, oh man, I just felt like I was off that day, and I felt like the interview was just like a little too blocked, and it didn't flow right, and there was no flow to it, and there was no fun to it. You're like, no, dude, like you were breaking down like 7 covers he did in a way that he was explaining it, and it was so cool, because we all know these covers that he did, and that was great. I'm like, oh yeah, I appreciate it, man, but like I just felt like I didn't put my best foot forward. Like, no, dude, you did fine with it, and it was cool, because what I liked about that interview, and people were like, it wasn't, and I wasn't even like beating myself up. I was like, it was an okay interview, but like I feel like I didn't do my best job with it.
Yeah,
and I even said, like, on somebody's stream, I'm like, that was on me. And Tim said, no, dude, you did a fantastic job with that. Like, shut the fuck up. Like, but like, and a bunch of people were like, oh, this was great. So it was just one of those things that obviously it's interesting, but I do want to transition to something else, because I am curious. Where do you think pop culture is going? Because obviously you're in the space. We're all fans of this stuff. And I don't really know where it's going, because I think there's pop culture at cons that's very different than the whole, I guess, matrix and system. But I'm curious how you feel about that. Because
I mean, I don't know necessarily where it's going, but I do kind of want to see, and I think it is happening, like the Marvel like oversaturation, just because like the movies and everything. I think it brought a lot of people into it, which is awesome, because they kind of blew up because of it. But I think what's going to happen is it brought all those new people in, and then they're also going to see other things they like. And I'm hoping that it retains those people, but I just hope, I think I see the Marvel stuff kind of dying down a little bit. I mean, I think it'll still be at the forefront, but I do think it'll like not be oversaturated. Yeah, what's up?
So I actually, I'm gonna see if I could actually write a paper on this, because I'm so curious about it. But I think that the Marvel MCU has a direct correlation to the United States' economy.
Because I don't, maybe I wouldn't disagree.
Hear me out on this, because when did the Marvel MCU start declining? 2020, right?
Probably, maybe, 2019, maybe, after
2019.
Was it Endgame, when Endgame came out?
So, because I don't think anything major, and I think it started declining after that, where they had a 13-year run.
Right.
Now, obviously, we had a financial crisis that started in 2006, caught up in 2007, and kicked off in 2008 with the housing crisis.
Right.
And
that's when Iron Man came out. That was the first one, right?
2007, 2008. Yeah. So
Yeah.
obviously the Marvel stuff came out of that, but then 2009, 2010, the United States went on a major bull run for
Mhm.
almost, relatively unchecked for about 10 years, 11, 10
Yeah.
years.
Hmm.
And so did Marvel, because my theory is that when the economy is doing good, people go to the movies, people go buy
Hmm.
things that are merchandise related to it because
For
they
sure.
have extra economics. And what I think has happened is that I think that because we're in stagflation, we're in inflation right now, things are really expensive, money's tight. I think all this stuff of comic books and merch and t-shirts, I think that has come to a bit of a halt. And I
Hmm.
think people are very selective. And I think, there's going to be a point where I think we're going to be in this position for another 2 years. And then I think it's going to take off again. And
I mean, that'd be awesome. Like, if you're telling me right now that this is like the bad part, like I'm kind of happy because I'm like, if you're telling me it's gonna get better, like that's awesome. Like, I feel like that's optimistic to me.
I think it's going to get better. It could take 2 to 4 years to get
Mhm.
better.
And like,
Um,
if I have this steady workflow for the next like 2 to 4 years until it does get better, I'm fine with that.
So I am, and this is my business, and I have no problem explaining this and talking about this, is that a lot of the merch that I bought, I don't think I'm going to be able to move for 2 years.
Mhm.
And both my parents are not happy with me, and I'm trying to explain to them I have to hold on for dear
Mhm.
life
Yeah.
because this stuff isn't moving. But
Mhm.
when the economy gets better, a book that normally would trade for 45 is going to
Mhm.
either fly off the shelf at 45, or
Mhm.
it's going to be a 55 or $60 book
Mhm.
really quickly, because when people have money and people got adjusted to inflation and bonuses are back and economics are back and
Mhm.
house prices come down and your hamburger meat comes down and
Mhm.
somebody has an extra bunch of money, this is going to be solved, and then
Mhm.
those prices are going to go back up.
I
And
hope so. Like, I'm not an economist or anything.
I'm not saying I'm not. I have faith that I think is what's going to happen,
Yeah,
because
and like, I hope so. It would make sense, like, based on past history. Um, I would
I,
hope so.
I just I think it's going to be a rough 2 to 4 years. And,
Yeah,
and,
yeah, it could
and
be.
somebody who's an investor in this stuff,
Hmm.
that is the bet I'm willing to take.
Hmm.
And now, though, I am pulling back and I'm properly adding content in, doesn't
Hmm.
mean stuff isn't good. It just means that you have to properly figure it out. But
Yeah.
I have a very interesting opinion about pop culture. I think that I mean, the anime boom is here too,
Hmm.
and that's not going anywhere else. And Sony is a monster,
Hmm.
and they're about to become a bigger one. If they get what they want in the next 18 months, let's just say that Sony's going to have a TV network
Hmm.
called CBS.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe.
Sony wants to buy Paramount.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
the only reason why they are not doing that is because Larry Oracle's son is in Skydance and he's in negotiations with buying Paramount
Hmm.
moment, which means that they have 30 to 45 days before Sony can make a move
Hmm.
with Apollo Management, which is a big Wall Street firm.
I mean, that would
So
be huge. That'd be enormous. They would own. I mean, it'd basically just be what, Sony and Disney then.
it would be Sony, Disney, Netflix, Apple, and NBC, Comcast.
Yeah, but
Um,
like, people like content. Like, I mean, what am I trying to say? Like, people that create stuff. Which, yeah, it does. What does Comcast make?
oh, really?
No,
Really?
I don't, dude. I don't know this stuff. I just sit in my
Oh,
hole all
okay,
day
okay,
and make art.
okay. They do they have Universal Studios.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that they were under,
They
or
they
Universal's under them.
they NBC. They own NBC.
Gotcha. Okay, I didn't know they were like an umbrella
So
corporation like that.
so they're a huge. They're a huge
Okay, yeah,
cable.
yeah, yeah. They are.
And then Law and Order is something they own.
Mhm.
The Chicago
Right.
franchise. They have, I think, is it seven figures is 10 million, right?
Yes.
Eight figures is 100 million.
Seven figures is 1 million.
So nine figures is 100 million, right?
Yes. Yeah.
They signed a nine-figure deal with Dick Wolf Entertainment. like
It's a lot of money.
last year, which is all the Law and Order stuff. It's all the FBI stuff.
Mhm.
It's all the Chicago PD, Chicago Fire, Chicago Med. I mean, that's like probably a 5 to 6 year deal.
Mhm.
Hundreds of millions of dollars so that they could keep that on Peacock.
Mhm.
So Comcast is a major content
For
producer.
sure. Yeah, I just didn't know. I knew Comcast, but I didn't know like what they kind of governed.
People forget, and they also took a playoff game behind a paywall,
Mhm.
which means we're going to get a pay for Super Bowl. That's coming. That's
Interesting.
coming. That's
Yeah.
coming. Give it 3 years.
Yeah.
In 3 years from now, you're like, oh yeah, he said it. I think I would pay $20 for the Super Bowl,
It
hands
wouldn't
down.
surprise. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if it did happen.
I wouldn't even blink. $20 for the Super Bowl, done. Not even gonna complain. Again, what you do though is that you invite all your friends. You invite 10 guys. Everybody drop chips in $2 or
Right.
for the Super Bowl. You bring beer. You get a pizza. You get some
Do you
chips.
still get commercials then with the $20 you pay?
Of course, you get all the good commercials.
Right, but like usually people pay money so they don't have to get the commercials. But in that sense, you do want the commercials.
It would be interesting, right? That would be interesting, right?
Mhm.
Because what would they do because the commercials are during timeouts, right?
Mhm.
So what would you do? I don't know what you would do in that circumstance. Oh, that's so interesting. But again, we're getting a paid for Super Bowl, everybody. I guarantee you. Put it on Peacock and $20. I'm telling you, it's coming. It's coming.
I won't disagree with you. It could very well could.
It's coming. I absolutely want to make it happen. I want a royalty. I'll take a 0.5% royalty on all the things done on it, and
you'll be set.
I'll be good for a while.
You'll retire and you'll cash out.
Me and Gronk will have a party. Maybe we'll both kick a field goal. But I digress. Obviously, I do want to show this right here because
thank you.
This is cool too.
Yeah, thank you. That was the one for C2E2.
Yeah, well, that's Marat Michaels, right?
Which one?
Those
are both mine.
No. That's counter.
Oh, yeah. Counterpoint. Yeah, that was from Marat. It was Clay McDonald's the exclusive cover. Then Sora did the Poison Ivy, the one like the connecting cover. I get they were kind of connecting. Hers was a night scene, but she had certain buildings because we did a Chicago skyline, so hers had certain buildings in it that I didn't have in mind. We wanted to make it contiguous. So
I'm assuming the 312 is the Chicago zip code.
It's like the downtown Chicago. So Chicago, I learned, has like 8 zip codes, but I used the downtown one. That was the one I was doing a lot of research over it, and that one was, if you're Chicago, it's 312. Also, she has the hot dog tattoo on her neck, like the what do you call it? The Chicago dog. So there's a lot of detail that went into it.
Interesting choice of a tattoo.
Yeah,
I'm surprised she doesn't have a CM Punk tattoo.
Well, I looked up like popular Chicago tattoos, and that one popped up a lot. It was the Chicago dog.
Yeah, I don't know anything about Chicago. My cousin had a wedding in Chicago, and I chose not to go because.
Well, I mean, for me, it's like somewhat local. It's like a 3-hour, 2.5-hour drive. So it's Midwest for me. But I still do a lot of research in it because I didn't want someone from Chicago to see it and be like, "Hey, you got this wrong." I try and do as much care in those kind of things and research before I apply them to a cover.
Fair enough. And then I know this is Damsels, and that's Murphy's book.
Yep.
So there you go there. But enough about that. We've been speaking for almost 2 hours, and I do want to give you a chance to promote yourself.
Yeah, thank you. So my website and pretty much everything is Tristarr, my name, right there. Tristarr.art. That's my Instagram. That's my website is Tristarr.art. Facebook is facebook.com/Tristarr.art. If you just Google it, my website has all my social media linked, but I would say Instagram and Facebook are probably the biggest ones I use. I also have Twitter, but I hardly ever use it. There's other things. But if you ever want to contact me about anything, you can contact me through my website, or my email is just tristarr.art@gmail.com.
Well, that's that. And obviously, I'm just going to say it and keep saying it, that you have to support what you want to see. That means that if artists have covers, you should go buy their covers. That also means that if they have social media or you want a commission, you should go buy and commission them to do things. Obviously, if they're on in stores, exclusives at conventions, all that stuff, go say hi, go buy a print, go buy a book, figure it out. Because money does make the world go around, and it is very, very important in that regard. And also, following people on social media, as I stated before, really helpful. It is just as important as spending money on art and people's products. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And then as far as I am concerned, everything that I got going on, I am Pop Anime Comics on Twitter. I am Pop Anime Comics on Instagram, Pop Anime Comics on Facebook. Also, I am Pop Anime Comics on the YouTube. I am Pop Anime Comics on TikTok, but I've been taking a slight break from TikTok. And also, I do have an eBay store, and it does help support this project. So if you are looking for comics and collectibles, come shop with us on eBay. And right now, I have a lot of really cool stuff in my store. I have a lot of cards in my store. I have a lot of comics in my store. I carry things like this in my store. I also carry things like this in my store. I carry things like this in my store, which is awesome in that regard, as well as things like this. So I carry a variety of things. And the items that are selling out of my store right now that are really hard, and just the second I put them in, within 2 weeks they sell out, are a lot of baseball cards, in particular Pete Alonso, as well as I am legitly selling out of WNBA cards. They come into my shop, and within a week or two, they're all gone. And I'm bringing in 25 of them, and legitimately 22 of them go out, because that's all I list. I keep 3 for myself, and I can't keep them in my store. So, and I beat Panini on their prices. So you're looking for reasonable cards that are not going to bankrupt you, and you want to join the club called Caitlin Clark's Fan Club, you're more than welcome to join me and everybody else who's buying them. And she could shoot a 3-pointer for all of us. So that, but that's everything I got. And as well as I carry things like this too, which are super cool. And people are telling me they can't see it. So there you go. But yes, I carry things like that, and I got a lot of those and a lot of other things similar to that. So again, if you're looking for some cool merch, that's what I got you covered. And everything else, that's pretty much me. So that's everything I got, and I'm going to give you the final word.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I look forward to possibly doing it again next year and see what you're up to. See, hopefully we'll be in your new house you're talking about. Hopefully I'll be have some more covers to show and some more stories to tell. But as always, yeah, it's been good. Thank you.
And I don't think I could have said that any better myself, everybody. That is a wrap.